Grading. Does it make you feel stressed out sometimes? It makes my friend Mo feel stressed out sometimes. This is Mo. And I actually bought this little finger puppet in my first year of teaching when I was feeling super stressed out. And I think I was stressed out for a lot of reasons, but I gotta tell you, one of the biggest ones was my grading load. And I know you all heard me talk about it quite a bit last year. But the grading load, the actual pile of papers to grade, isn't the only reason that grades stress me out a little bit. Grades are challenging because they're only one measure, right, of our capability and of our intellectual capacity, right? And they can be really skewed. They can be super biased, right? The way that your teacher interprets something that you've said or written, or the way that you interpret their directions. Like, there's so much that can be lost in communication or that can be impacted by our biases, and that can come out in grading. And so that's another reason it's challenging, is just wanting to make sure that I'm doing it fairly and equitably. And then the last reason that grading is really tricky is maybe a student isn't achieving the grades that they want or that I want them to, but that doesn't mean that they don't know the skills, right? And so it's tough to kind of weigh like how much of the grading is about skill and how much of it is about effort. And it's just such a balancing act. So it's a journey, right? And I think the most important thing about grading is that we are open in communication with each other. The more that we talk about your work and how you're feeling about your work and where I see your proficiency and where you see your proficiency, the better we will be able to have accurate grades, I think. So I want to just first and foremost name that I want the lines of communication to always be open. And if you feel like I am grading you unfairly, like, the number one thing I need you to do is come talk to me about it. And the way that you can say that is, Miss McDonald, I'm confused about why I received this grade. I did read your comments and the rubric. Please do that first. And I still don't really understand. Can we talk about it? And I am happy to talk about it. Also know that I've made mistakes in the past. There have been times where I accidentally give a kid a 5 out of 10 on something because the student in the grade book right below them was supposed to get a 5 out of 10 on something. And I just put my data entry in wrong. And if that student hadn't challenged me on it, I would have accidentally given them like an F on something that they didn't deserve, right? It doesn't happen often, but I am only human. So please know that you can always talk to me about your grades, whether they're on small assignments or big ones. I want us to discuss two things today. I want us to talk about the late policy, and then I also want us to talk about the different types of grading that we do in English class. So I'll let you read the pie chart for yourself. Just remember that the reason that the writing and projects is worth so much is because that's the most solid assessment that we do in English class. And it's the most summative assessment, meaning that we've spent a lot of time working on it, and we get to the end of the unit and we have had so many checkpoints along the way and lessons along the way. And it is like a big deal, right? So things that go into that category are the things we've been working on pretty diligently. They tend to be the things that also have rubrics that you have seen in advance. Okay, so completion versus assessment grades. So completion grades are exactly what they sound like. These are grades you get just for completing an assignment. In my class, almost every homework and classwork assignment is graded on completion. I grade things in 10-point increments. So if I give you a classwork assignment, it's worth 10 points. If I give you a homework assignment, it's worth 10 points. Every now and then I double it or triple it if it's something you've been working on for many days. But if it's like one unit of a day's work, it's 10 points. It just makes the calculations easier for me, and it helps me stay consistent to always default to 10. So as long as you do it, you get 10 points, unless you don't meet minimum expectations. So if I give you a worksheet and you only fill out 3/4 of it, then you don't get 10 points, right? Because you didn't fully complete it. Then you get an incomplete, or you get 7.5 out of 10. That's how completion grades work. So like I said, almost everything in homework and classwork is graded on completion. I will let you know when it's not going to be. And then most of your MemBean training is graded on completion as well. The only exception is when we do MemBean assessments. Those are not graded on completion. Those are assessments. So then that leads us into the other part of grading is when I'm actually assessing your skills and knowledge. So that's where it's like a writing assignment that I'm reading thoroughly and grading with a rubric, or it's a test or a quiz that I'm administering, or a MemBean assessment. So those are things that are graded really based on skills that are demonstrated. Sometimes you might not demonstrate the skill in that moment, but it doesn't mean you don't have it, right? Like if you have test anxiety, maybe you knew it before you sat down for the test and it just left your brain during the test. Or if you procrastinate on an essay and you turn in like the best you could do in the hour you had, but it's not indicative of your best work, right? That's not truly measuring your skills, but they're graded as though they measure your best skills, because the assumption is that you're like putting in the absolute best work you can. Late work is this. My policy is the one that we have in our handbook, which is that an assignment is reduced by 10% every school day that it is late. So if it was due on a Thursday and you turn it in on a Friday, then you lose 10%, which means you go from having potentially a 100% grade to having a 90% grade. That drops you from an A+ to an A-. That's not so bad, but when you get to 2 days, that's when it starts to hurt you. Brings you down to a B-. Third day is a C-. Fourth day is a D-. And by the fifth day, the highest grade you can get is an F. In my class, if we are between snapshots, as long as you can still turn it in, even if it's past 5 days, right? But if I haven't gotten to that next snapshot yet, which they tend to come out about once a month, right? You can still turn it in as long as the snapshot hasn't come out. Once it does, I X everything out, right? But you can still turn it in leading up to that. And you can get that 5 out of 10 points, the F, which is, trust me, a million times better than a 0. For, I lost my train of thought. That's why I need a script. I think that's it. I think we're good. I don't know. For essays and writing and projects, it's a little bit different because I want to be mindful not to over penalize you. But this is where communication is really, really key, right? So this is where asking for an extension is incredibly important. And then, like I said, it's every school day. So if something was due on a Friday and you turn it in the next Monday, it still is only 1 point or 10% off. It's considered 1 day late, even though it's like 3 days later. So next school day. All right, that's how that works. Go to the revision policy page if you want to learn more about how to make sure that you're feeling good about your writing and projects grade, because it is worth a huge percentage of your overall grade, but there are so many opportunities to make sure that you feel good about it. I have a really lenient writing revision policy. All right, be well.